Hello and welcome to the No Huddle podcast. This week, a little bit something different. It's a Wednesday, mid Wednesday, so I didn't want to give a week 6 reaction. I feel like we moved past, and now we are trending towards week 7. So instead, we are gonna have a little bit of fun with tiers. So the way I do power rankings or tiers are a little different. I don't necessarily rank them 1 through 32. I think it's a very, very hard discussion to have as to why one team is 32 or one team is 31 or why, I don't know, the Colts are better than like the Bills even though they haven't played this year. I think is a very, very difficult and pointless discussion to have. Instead, what I like the tiers method a lot more, like of course like S tier, A tier, but I don't like just an S tier and an A tier. I don't think that's very fun. So I've decided to name my tiers a la Nick's tiers. First things first. They always nail the names on that show. They don't ever nail the rankings. So I'm hoping, to give a little bit some better rankings. So let's just kick in right into it. Bottom feeders. Now, it's hard to necessarily call someone like just the worst of the NFL heading into what is it, week 7? We've only played 1/3 of football or 1/3 of the football season. So, of course, there is a small chance I am jumping the gun with these teams, but I feel like this year and last year, more than other years, you could very easily tell who was going to be awful right away. So, I'm going to list some teams. I don't know if there's any shockers here. The Titans, 1-5. Head coach just got fired a few days ago, which honestly was the best thing that could have happened to them this season outside of like Cam Ward looking great, which, he's had ups and downs, but I've seen a lot of people overreacting and really freaking out to Cam Ward, especially the last few weeks, to which I would say he's a rookie. It's a rookie quarterback. Never overreact to a quarterback's rookie year. Other than that, we've got the Raiders, which I don't know. It's crazy to see the Raiders here at 2-4, especially preseason. I thought they were going to be an exceptionally just solid team. I thought Geno can get them regular season wins. I've never been a Geno guy personally. I've always been, let's keep Geno in Seattle as long as possible as a Niners fan. But seeing him go with the Raiders and Pete Carroll, and honestly, that offense has some weapons to it, or not even weapons necessarily, but talent. And it's fallen apart. Geno's awful. Like his best game was probably last week, or of course outside of week 1. Last week he had 1 touchdown, 1 pick. And that felt like such a big market improvement and actually let the team win. And for that to be the big highlight outside of week 1, it's not great. The Jets, they're 0-6. Justin Fields cannot throw the football, but he's not been able to throw the football for his entire career. This is nothing new. For the Jets to be here at 0-6 with Aaron Glenn, with honestly, again, some talent. This team isn't devoid of talent. I don't think anyone heading into the year thought the Jets would be the last winless team remaining. But here we are. They're awful, truly awful. I don't know if anyone had the displeasure of watching Jets Broncos, but I did because now I live in the Midwest, so I can actually catch some of the international games. And I was able to watch a good bit of Jets Broncos, and I really, really regret the time I spent with that. Because, yikes, -10 passing yards. -10 in the modern NFL. How do you have not even net 45 passing yards just as a whole? Because he could not get rid of the ball at all. It's the same problem. It's been the same problem for years. Like when Bears fans were killing their GM for not drafting an offensive line. And it didn't matter. Because if you actually watch the games, you could see he would never get rid of the ball. It's like the Caleb Williams problem from last year, but just forever. Because Caleb Williams at least adapted a bit. It's mind-numbing to watch the Jets, and it's mind-numbing to watch Justin Fields and still have people defend him. I don't know how many Justin Fields defenders are left. Whoever they are, you know what? At this point, just hold strong, because why not? Maybe in 10 years he'll figure it out, and you could finally see some of the athleticism plus solid throwing ability. Because I don't know. And if you look on the defensive side too, like they still have a beast. They still have beasts everywhere. Quinnen Williams is awesome. Sauce Gardner is great. He's not the same he was his rookie year, but he's still a great corner. They still have a really talented linebacking core with Sherwood. Like this team has some juice to it, but it's just not been tapped at all. And by Aaron, with Aaron Glenn leading the helm, I know I'm not gonna advocate to fire your head coach after 6 games or after the first year, but this is about as rough as a start as you can get. It's for them to not have a single win. His hallmark was the Lions DC last year. He was able to put together a solid defense with literally nothing, just practice squad guys that actually pushed them all the way until the divisional round, where it eventually did fall apart. And now it's like you have talent. Your defense looked good last week, but they didn't look good against the Cowboys. They haven't looked good like the rest of the year. They're a very undisciplined team still. So many problems with the Jets. Clock management too. At the end of the first half, that whole drama there with like Garrett Wilson yelling at Aaron Glenn because they're very clearly doing the stupid thing and letting the clock run out at midfield. Brutal. The Browns, I mean, they're gonna be here as long as they don't have a quarterback. It's sucky for them because again, I mean, they had Baker. Probably should have stuck with him, even though he was injured and played bad for one season. That doesn't mean you give up on your first overall pick and trade 3 for Deshaun Watson. It's gonna be crazy. Like that'll be one of those things that people will talk about in 20 years. And it's like, really, they did that? The same way we talk about Herschel Walker now, or I'm trying to think, Ricky Williams getting traded for 8 picks to the Saints. It'll be the same way we see those things. That move was so bad. Set back the entire franchise in the public eye. Set back the team, obviously. Brutal. And what's crazy, again, for them is that they have a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. Jim Schwartz, the DC for the Browns, is kind of coaching his ass off this year. Outside of like the end of the Steelers game, they were great. Again, very much kept their whole team in it, gave them a chance, but they just can't move the football at all. Saints might be the one team on the bottom here with the most hope, I guess, outside of the Titans. At least they have Cam Ward. But for the Saints, Spencer Rattler, sneaky good. I think that's starting to get more and more attention, as it should, because as they're playing, he honestly is a really, really solid quarterback. I saw it when the Saints were playing the Niners, and of course the Niners going to pay closer attention because he was like kind of dotting us up, and he was running down the field like crazy. He has good mobility, and again, he's throwing really, really solid passes. Not too many turnovers, which was characteristic of him last year. Like again, just solid quarterback play. And right now, when the quarterback class is pretty awful, I see kind of no reason for them to just stick it out right one more year with Rattler and sort of see if they can keep hammering at a potential diamond in the rough here. The Cardinals, I don't have much to say. They looked fine with Jacoby Brissett, and they almost did beat the Colts. But, okay. The Bengals, they're here because Joe Burrow isn't healthy, and Joe Flacco is just not the answer. I don't care. Like, last week against the Packers, he was okay. At least he didn't throw 3 interceptions like Jake Browning did, but okay. And the Dolphins, who will soon have a new head coach, a new GM, and probably a new quarterback. Tua's comments post-game were so weird. Not necessarily taking blame, I guess, because like the standard thing to do as the quarterback is just take the blame on the podium, address the media, whatever. But I think he's very frustrated of it all. He's like talking about players not showing up to players-only meetings, which if you're already having players-only meetings, that's a pretty big yikes. Overall, it's just a whole ass mess in Miami. I think Mike McDaniel will be back as an OC somewhere in the next year or so. I hope the Dolphins GM does not need a job. I don't know if anyone wants his services. I think the Dolphins would be getting a lot more coverage if Tyreek Hill wasn't injured, because I think they're a really fun team to think about when it comes to like a potential Tyreek Hill trade and who that could bolster. But he's out. Next tier. Who the hell knows / I want to see more. Self-explanatory title. I have the Ravens, which, of course, a million injuries. Because, like, right now, if you're just, like, talking about the way the Ravens have played the last few weeks, ever since the Chiefs game where Lamar got injured, oh, yeah, they need to be, like, at the very, very back of bottom feeders. They're there with the Titans, the Raiders, and the Jets as, like, just 3 awful teams. But with Lamar back, with their defensive guys back, I think they would be everyone except Nnamdi Madubuike. Yeah, Justin Madubuike. Everyone would be back outside of him. And then the Ravens have a really, really soft schedule towards the second half of the year. Like, I can still see it there. So I do just need to see them play with Lamar. But if they lose 1 or 2 more games with Lamar, it'll be safe to just call them done for the year. The Texans, they started off 0-3, looked really, really rough. And then they picked up a win over the Titans, 26-0, shut them out. and then they fully dominated that shorthanded Ravens team 44-10. And for the Texans, I think I said it on a previous podcast. I think they're one of the big X factors in the AFC, especially because right now the AFC looks so weak outside of just a few teams that they can very easily sneak in there as like the third AFC South team, and no one will want to play Houston because we know how good that defense is. They have the best edge rushing duo in the league. They've had it for the last 2 years, and Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter, freaking terrifying off the edge. They have an insane corner in Derek Stingley who can shut down basically any receiver in this league. They have, and then that offense, which let's just say it wasn't great through the first 3 weeks, was really, really awful. I think you could argue they had one of the best defenses in the league and probably the worst offense in the league outside of Cleveland. CJ Stroud wasn't playing great. They couldn't run the ball. Their offensive line was awful. But it seems that they picked up momentum. Now, again, if you want to just say they played the Titans and the Ravens, absolutely fair. I'm not going to critique that. But that's why I have them in that I do want to see more. Because if that offense could genuinely put up 21 a game or more, they're terrifying. Because that defense, again, is going to force turnovers. They're going to be killers. They're coached by D'Amico Ryans. Of course they're going to be great. But they just need that offense to just give them a little bit of production. Like, genuinely, 20 plus. I think if the Texans right now, if their fan base was offered, hey, we're going to get you 21 points a game, that offense, I think they sign it. And I think they're in the playoffs. So we'll see with that one. The Panthers, a 3-3 football team for Carolina, which I think everyone does love to see because, of course, their quarterback is so likable, Bryce Young. They have such a fun receiver. And what about Rico Dowdle? My God, I was watching that. I was watching Panthers Cowboys the whole time. I was like, is Rico Dowdle like the next coming of Zeke Elliott? Like he was crazy. Granted, I think that has a little bit more to do with the fact that the Cowboys defense really is just that bad. Then Rico Dowdle is a god, and the Dolphins defense is just that bad last week. But great for him, man. It's a really fun breakout. He was such a consistent player the last 2 weeks too. It's not just like he's getting a few bursts and like a few huge runs, like an 80-yard run or a 70-yard run. No, he's just a killer. He just gets like 7 to 8 a carry, and there's just nothing you can do about it. That last drive for Carolina against Dallas, it was like a 15-play drive, killed 7 minutes of clock, and there was just nothing they could do. So, I mean, if the Panthers get that solid of a run game, which, again, it's not going to be 200 to 300 yards good per game, or at least I don't think so. That was more to do with their defenses. But if they can get just a solid 4 yards per carry out of Rico Dowdle, just keep that offense on the field and moving, take a little bit of pressure off of Bryce Young's plate, I don't know. That's why this whole team, or this whole tier is who the hell knows. I feel like I'm going to be saying that with every single one of these teams. It's just like, maybe. Again, same thing I've said before as far as the defenses go. Like, they have killers on that defense. They have Derek Brown, who's the second best defense tackle in the league. Somewhere it's a toss-up between Dexter Lawrence, Chris Jones, him, and Vita Vea. I don't care. All of them are insanely good. So, again, they have talent. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, especially them at the deadline. We'll have a deadline conversation later in the episode because I'm very curious to see what Carolina does at the deadline. Atlanta, who we just saw put the absolute shellacking on the Bills 24-14 on Monday night. That power run game for Atlanta is so good. It's, of course, spearheaded by one and only Bijan Robinson, probably the second best running back in the league, somewhere between him or Jonathan Taylor. Again, don't care whichever one you pick. They have great blocking in their interior, again, of course, with Chris Lindstrom, who is an absolute beast, as he has been for just his entire career. And that defense, man, that defense is really, really fun to watch for Atlanta. The way they were able to get after Josh Allen in that game, it was impressive as hell. Jalen Walker and James Pierce as an edge rushing speed duo is so much fun. And it's so cool that they get to have him for the next, 4 or 5 years. I think James Pierce was a first round pick. Okay, yeah, the next 5 years. They'll be able to have him as their duo because those guys can get after the quarterback. Their whole defense can. I think they have 14 sacks spread across 10 players. So that's a really young defense that's only going to get better and better, led by Raheem Morris. And Atlanta, it's a team that I feel like everyone was dead on 2 weeks ago when they got blown up by the Panthers. I want to say that was 2 or 3 weeks ago. They got shut out 30-0 by the Panthers, and everyone's like, okay, yeah, they're dead. And we need to start having serious questions about Penix. It's crazy how much a few weeks can change. because now they're 3-2, above 500. If Tampa wasn't such a beast in that division, I feel like they could be real division contenders. And it's just how far can Bijan and Drake London take them as far as their offense goes? And the answer is pretty decently far because both those guys are awesome. That Monday night game, just a huge I got the vibe of that game. It was just like a culture shifter. That's the type of game where we look back at the end of the season. It's like, oh wow, and we knew who Atlanta was that game. That was the game where they announced themselves on a national stage. Because doing what they did to the Bills is impressive. I haven't seen a team do that to the Bills since, like, I want to say the Ravens did it to them last year in like week 5. It was just an absolute shellacking on both ends. So I need to see more because we have a very, very high with that Bills game and just an ungodly low, losing 30-0 to the Panthers. Next, my CTE boys, who I talked about a lot on the last episode, the Giants. Jackson Dart is playing awesome whenever he's healthy and not in the blue tent where Brian Daboll has to go check on him every 3 seconds because Russell Wilson cannot come into the game. He looked so good on Thursday night, and if you want to hear more about that, I have that whole episode up. His throws were insanely accurate under extreme pressure too. He was able to evade that pressure, because the Giants' offensive line was playing the Eagles' defensive line, so they were still able to get home a bit, even with Carter out. And Cam Scatterbo, a really, really just again fun running back. This is just all the points from last week. Fun running back. He can get you like 4 or 5 yards every time. Lower the head, take the hits. Who knows how much brain matter will be left after 3 years, but it's okay. Go get the first down. Go bang your head against a wall. Have some fun. That Giants defensive line tees off like crazy. They're starting to really kick into gear, and they're starting to be that preseason Giants defensive line that we were talking about. Again, if you want to hear more about the Giants, just head back to the last episode. Now, the last team in this tier, the Cowboys. It's a team that I feel like I would have had in the next tier, but last week was just brutal. Losing to that Panthers team, punting the ball back with 7 minutes and just not seeing it again. Like, realistically, what's stopping any team from doing that against the Cowboys? I don't think the Carolina run game is just that ferocious. It's just that they have no ability to stop the run, which is crazy because they traded Micah Parsons for a quote-unquote run stuffer, excuse me. And it just doesn't matter. They still can't stop the freaking run. Dak is playing amazing. Dak is at MVP level Dak. It's really, really fun to watch this Cowboys offense. Pickens is finally being utilized in the right way, not under the terrorism of Arthur Smith or Matt Canada or wherever. He could finally be a true wide receiver one, and he is thriving in that role. On the outside, he felt unguardable that whole game. And now they're going to be adding CD back at some point in the next week or two. So that Cowboys offense is going to get even better, and it's genuinely like a 30 to 35 point per game offense. Brian Schottenheimer, as a first-year head coach, is doing great when it comes to just calling that offense. But that defense, it's going to keep them down here in like the bottom 15 until they can get just average defense. The same way I feel like the Texans would kill for an average offense right now. It's the exact same thing for the Cowboys, just average. If they could just get fine defensive play, not get killed by their every single run play, they would be a lot higher up, but they don't. So maybe if you don't trade your generational edge rusher, just a shot. Next here, Frisky. Again, I like my tier names. Very, very self-explanatory. We got the Steelers, who have looked pretty good, honestly. 4-1. Aaron Rodgers is playing exceptionally solid football. His quick passing game, it's a little bit Chiefs-like in that how efficient it really can be. As far as him just getting the ball out in an instant. Really makes up for the fact that the Steelers' offensive line is not that great. And their run game really is like pretty okay. Of course, that defense with Mike Tomlin at the helm, with TJ Watt, with Highsmith whenever he's healthy, and Jalen Ramsey has actually been a really, really solid add for them. And that defense is playing really we saw their defense play really well last week against the Browns, but it's the Browns. But Dylan Gabriel looked solid against the Vikings, so you still have to give him some credit for completely shutting down that team. I feel like the Steelers in this tier are pretty self-explanatory. The Jags take a good bit of a hit from where I saw them last week because they really had no answers in Seattle. They did not look good at all. Trevor Lawrence and that offense putting up 12 points. I know that they had a touchdown taken back due to penalty, but And again, the stats looked good at the end of the day. He still had like over 250 yards, but it's just their offense really isn't that good. If your defense holds the other team to 20 points, you should win. But they couldn't get the job done there. Uh, the Commanders are in this tier as well. Rough loss for them. A game that if they had won, they would have been 4-2 and tied for the division. And instead, they're at 3-3, and they lost to in one of the more hyped up games of the year, especially because of how last year's game went, and to lose on like a Jake Mooney game winning field goal because you botched a snap. Like those issues for the Commanders are not going to be like long term issues. I don't see them having a problem with Jane Daniels turning the ball over or them not being able to hand off the ball correctly. Those were just like momentary gashes for a young team. Or I can't even say young team. I'm saying young team because their quarterback is young and they just made like a surprise run last year. But that team is old as dirt. I always forget because they have like Bobby Wagner and Von Miller. Whatever. How would you say for a younger offense? Just making those mistakes, but it's stuff that they'll clean up. It's just an unfortunate thing that it all had to hit them in that one game because that loss was so unfortunate. And on the flip side of that, the Bears are also in this tier, 3-2. 3-2, same amount of wins as the Commanders, but in a little bit of a different perspective. They've won 3 in a row. Caleb Williams is playing really, really solid football. Sometimes he still does that thing where he holds the ball for a bit longer, but he's learned. And I think he's on pace to take like half the sacks he did last year. Credit the Bears for building a better offensive line for him, one. And then two, sometimes he'll run and dance, like try and make a play. But then, he'll either just like get rid of the ball instead of just eating the sack, which I don't know why this took 2 years for him to figure out. A couple years at college, 1 year, 1 year in Chicago, but hey, he got that through his head. And the Bears defense is a unit that you could tell they're missing Jalen Johnson. They're, of course, number one, amazing all-pro corner. But they're able to, capitalize. They're able to force some turnovers. And I always really do love their safety, Jaquan Brisker. He's one of the more fun players to watch. He just absolutely kills guys in the middle of the field. Fun to watch. They got their really good nickel back, Kyler Gordon, last week. And they're building some momentum. I think it's... if they weren't 3-2 and looking so solid, I feel like I would put them in the I want to see a little more because with how hard their division is and how hard because of that their schedule is. I'm not sure about like this team making the playoffs or anything, but there's very clearly something here. And then the last team I have in this tiers are the Vikings. They're going to be getting I think they're getting JJ McCarthy back, which I can't say it's a positive right now because Carson Wentz is playing like perfectly solid football, which with how good their defense is and how good Brian Flores is kind of a win. But, of course, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison being back off suspension, and he had a really, really clutch touchdown to beat Cleveland 2 weeks ago. And again, with them, it's like sort of the same way I view the Texans in that their defense with Brian Flores is just so good. Their blitzes are awesome. If you're a football nerd like me, you love watching the Vikings defense just because you see Brian Flores' mind in action. And if you aren't a football nerd, I highly suggest whenever the Vikings play, watch their defense, especially against like a younger quarterback or a slightly worse offense, because you watching those guys like tee off and like see like 7 random guys coming in blitz. So cool to watch. Their secondaries looked a bit better than last year as well. Whole thing with the Vikings is like I don't know about their quarterback. But other than that, like their whole team is great on paper. So, I want to see what McCarthy looks like with this offense. But yeah, overall, very frisky team. Next tier, very simple tier. Injuries suck. I'm sure you can imagine one team on this list. But the other one right now, I have the Chargers on here because I know what you're thinking. 4-2 teams shouldn't be this low. But I don't know if you've watched in the last few weeks, ever since he started 3-0, it really doesn't look that good. Justin Herbert is making up and covering for just their offensive line being fully decimated. Now Slater being out at the beginning of the year is like something you can kind of survive with Joe Alt being there. But now Joe Alt being out just means that this whole thing doesn't work at all. And Marion Hampton, their starting running back, being out is brutal. He was looking really good in the run game and in like pass everything. He looked great. So having him out sucks, and they're now like running with like a blunt rotation of Hassan Askins and Vidal, which Like, I don't have much to say about that. Uh, their defense is also pretty battered, but they're getting Khalil Mack back in the next, I want to say, 2 or 3 weeks. I saw that his practice window just opened up. So whenever he comes back, that'll help their defense a ton because it did kind of struggle against Miami last week. They allowed 26 points, even with getting 2 turnovers on Tua, or I want to say 2 or 3 interceptions on Tua. It still didn't look great. It's a team that just needs to get healthy. But the good news for the Chargers is that they will get healthy. They will get their guys back, except for Slater, of course. Once they get Alt back, I think, especially with that offense and O'Marion Hampton back, we'll start to see them sort of look like they did the first few weeks. And then, of course, they'll move up with these tiers. Now, the reason why I was emphasizing not getting your guys back, the San Francisco 49ers are also on this list. Another 4-2 team. If Fred Warner isn't injured right now, I feel like every Niners fan would still be insanely optimistic because they are getting some guys back, like the Chargers. They're getting Brock Purdy back next week, hopefully. They're getting George Kittle back for sure, and they're hopefully getting Ricky Pearsall, and they all could be back by Sunday for the Atlanta game. But when I tell you there hasn't been a bigger gut punch to this franchise when it comes to a single injury like Fred Warner is for this team in 3 years. And by 3 years, I mean the point where Brock Purdy's elbow exploded against the Eagles. I don't know. Like the whole team, the whole fan base was dead after that injury. I'll just give you my reaction to it. When I saw it and I saw he was down, I'm like, okay, whatever. Like I've seen Fred Warner go down and pop back up a million times. He's an Iron Man. But then you see the replay and it's like, oh shit. And you see you just randomly get rolled up on. There's nothing you can do. And then his foot's pointing the wrong way. And then you see I see on Twitter, I'm scrolling as fast as I can, and I see air cast on his foot. I know what that means because we as an Irish fan, we saw Trey Lance get injured with a similar looking ankle injury, and you hear aircast, and it's like, okay, yeah, I know what that means. I think Irish fans more than any other fan base know what that means. He was the captain of the defense. He was the leader. He was the reason why the defense was still functioning outside of because once Bosa was gone, we couldn't get any pass rush. But Fred Warner was just unbelievable. And if you're watching the beginning of that game, he was blowing everything up. He single-handedly killed a drive for them on the first drive of the game by just fully reading and destroying a screen, which was awesome to watch. And he is probably the best player I have watched on the Niners, period. As Nick Bosa, when he won the Defensive Player of the Year, was awesome. Tebow in 2021 was like one of the most fun players I've ever had the privilege of watching. But as far as like a pure football player, he's probably the best. And he was playing the best he ever had this year. He was the best player according to PFF. He had an over 90 grade in coverage and run support, which is obviously not done by any other linebacker in this league. He is so far and away at his position the best player, and it's like not even a debate, which is crazy because I feel like there's a debate with every other single position and player in this league outside of linebacker where everyone can just agree there's one guy who's the best. I guess corner with Patrick Surtain, but like even then, some people will try and argue it. But no one argues Fred Warner. Not even Ravens fans will argue that Roquan Smith's better than Fred Warner. Not even Jaguars fans will argue that Devin Lloyd's better than Fred Warner. He is such a clear 1A. So the captain and the leader of the whole team goes down for what seems, I think they said 3 months, but like it's the year, fractured his ankle. And with Nick Bosa being out, I just don't know how the Niners recover. And because that defense, at this point, you're relying on just young guys. Tatum Bethune, I think, is actually a really talented player. He had like 10 tackles as soon as Fred Warner came out. If you don't know, Tatum Bethune's the replacement now for Fred Warner this year. And I'm very high on Bethune. I would have liked to see, especially because Winters was starting to struggle. I was going to be like the type of guy to advocate, like, hey, let's try Bethune and Warner because I think that has real potential. But he can't be ready to take over for the Fred Warner role. No one is. And as talented of a player as I think he is, it is such an unfortunate spot for him to be in, which is to be like, all right, you got to be the new leader when he's played like a couple games at most. Of course, other guys will take over in like the leadership role. I'm just talking about like as like a captain of the defense and like reading the offense, stuff like that. Their offense for the Niners, uh, Brock being, like I mentioned before, Brock being back, Kittle being back, Pearsall being back are huge. It's the Niners have needed consistency at the receiver position, and Pearsall gives you that and more. Because while Kendrick Bourne gives you explosive plays, which is great, he also gives you so many mind-numbing, infuriating penalties or like missed blocks. But so just having a constant 1A at the receiver spot, awesome. And you could tell the Niners had plans for George Kittle this year just off that first drive in Seattle, which again was like the only drive he played this whole year. But he had like 3 catches and a touchdown on that drive. So it'll be fun to actually, get to see what the vision was with Kittle and Kittle and Taun just also going to be fun. And so we get to see Brock and Kittle back at it again. And so the offense, I have hope. It's just that this was a Niners team that was carried by the defense all year. And now we're going to have to completely hit a 180 on our identity. And it's now going to be, can our offense carry us? Which is something I'm going to need to wait and see to watch. It's brutal because I think now, barring like some crazy trade, I'm not sure about like a Super Bowl, but I still think the Niners can be like a strong player for the NFC West. It's just we're going to need to see how Shanahan and the offense adapts to now. Basically, it's going to be almost a guarantee that we allow at least 20, 25 points per game, which earlier was like the most we'd ever allow. So we'll see with them. Okay, moving on to our next tier. We have what I like to call something interesting is happening here. And that is both in a good way and a bad way. So let's start with the bad way. And I'm kicking it off with the team that got baptized on Monday night in the Buffalo Bills. I'm sure you've heard this so many times, but the Bills have won 4 games, and those 4 teams they've beat have a combined 3 wins. So let's just say they haven't beat the greatest of the competition. And in the 2 games they've played against competitive teams, the Patriots, which was a tight one, and then they lost and got destroyed by the Falcons. So with the Bills, they're also a team that's pretty injured right now, and they're injured in really, really bad spots for them. So it's not like their whole team is dead, but their defensive tackle, Daquan Jones, being out last game was just so big. You could tell they had no answers to stopping the run at all. Ed Oliver got banged up for a period of that game, and I saw Terrell Bernard go down as well. Like, they are a team that's starting. They got battered in that game. They got bruised. They got bullied. So many things to say, or so many other ways of saying it. So for that Bills, and like when you're thinking about like the teams that have to play in the AFC, they wouldn't necessarily have to worry about like a super strong running game from Kansas City or anything. But if they ran into Indianapolis, yeah, the run game is going to be a real problem. If they ran into, what else do I have on here? If they ran into like the Broncos, then with that 1-2 punch of, or not even 1-2 punch, which is like a very, very solid run game out of J.K. Dobbins, I don't know how many answers they have for that. So with the Bills, their whole run defense just needs to be way better. Which I think it will if we give time for Daquan Jones to come back. Matt Milano whenever he's healthy, which I feel like at this point it's always just like a positive if he's even out there. He always has to deal with so many injuries. I have to imagine that also helps with the run game. And for their offense, like they didn't have much going at all. I guess it was a novel strategy to try because in my head, blitzing Josh Allen doesn't really make much sense. But hey, it worked. 54% blitz rate, I want to say, for the Falcons against the Bills in that game. And the Bills, I guess they just weren't expecting it all because they just had no answers. They had 2 very, very like nice drives. But other than that, they were like fully grounded. And Josh Allen had one pretty bad interception, and then he had another like not so great one, but that was later in the game, and it was like basically over at that point. But Josh Allen starting to turn the ball over again, not a good look. I think that's something that will come back to being normal though. And I guess for the whole Bills team, it's just that we kind of just need to see them win a few really, really impactful games because right now they're kind of shooing out for it. It's just they're just playing sort of trash and winning. So Bills just need like one of those statement wins that say like, yeah, we're here. Like, no, we're not done with that noise. Whatever. I need to see that out of the Bills before I can put them back in that like super high tier contender status. Next team, we have the Lions, who also got shellacked. I guess this is the you got shellacked here. They got boat raced by Kansas City. And just what was like an absolute, it really felt like just domination. Because the Chiefs played a pretty much perfect game against them. No penalties, no turnovers. I want to say that was the first time since 1972 that that combination of things happened. So for the Lions, they kind of ran into what was a juggernaut for the day, which I can't necessarily blame them for. But what I can blame them for is that their offense put up 17 points and really felt like, and the whole game for the Lions felt like it fell apart as soon as Amon-Ra St. Brown dropped that fourth down before halftime because he couldn't get hold of the ball, and the Chiefs were able to take it and get points right before half. And at that point, it was like, okay, well, you made that one mistake. Kansas City is just going to go do the Kansas City thing and go make you pay for it for the rest of the game, which they absolutely did. Um, so for the Lions, it was a team I think everyone had like number one in the power rankings. They looked awesome. They had won four straight. I think more, at least towards me, I think this is just like an unfortunate loss. I think also with their secondary having as many injuries as it did, whenever they get those guys back, that'll sort of stabilize their team a bit. And I more felt like that game was a statement on the Chiefs rather than it was on the Lions. But with all their secondary injuries and really just how poor they looked that game, I think you do kind of have to knock them a bit. Last team in the bad way category. Remember, all of these teams are not necessarily ranked from like the. I don't think the Bills are the worst, and the Eagles, who are the team next, are the best out of these three. It's just like this is just the tier. The Eagles. I don't. Phillies. Philly's an interesting team to talk about. Again, as I said with the Giants, I had discussed them in the previous pod. If you hadn't checked it out, I talked about that whole Giants Eagles game in depth. So I don't want to get too much into it here. But basically, their OC sucks, and their defense without Jalen Carter is so bad. Like they're such a thin defense without just Carter or Quinyon Mitchell or Cooper DeJean. If like just one of those guys goes down, it feels like everything kind of ends. Like nothing works anymore. So Eagles are about an injury or two away from just like collapsing entirely. So they can't get injured at all. If they had the injuries of like the Niners or the Chargers right now, yeah, they wouldn't be winning very many games. Sorry. Okay. Now trending towards in a good way. The Patriots. 4-2. Of course they had that huge win against Buffalo a few weeks ago, and then they beat the Saints, which I'll be honest, like I know they're 1-5, so I guess pretty much everyone does it. But beating the Saints isn't an easy thing to do. That they're getting really solid quarterback play, and their defense is extremely solid. So it was a credit to them, even with also getting some horrible calls in that game. Like they got some jank OPI calls in that, even other stuff. It was not great out of the refs in that one. Drake May, I think I think it's safe to say he's ascended now. 5 games of just like truly great play out of him from weeks 2 through 6. And it's something that will continue in the next few weeks with, I think the Titans and the Raiders coming, like they'll be fine. Or Drake May will keep putting up those numbers. And if he's able to keep this up, he's going to find himself in that MVP conversation, which is crazy for the Patriots to have another great MVP caliber quarterback. Cause they just had Brady 5 years ago, but I guess they're spoiled like the Packers are. They're back in that same spot. He's really solid. I think he has the highest passer rating of any quarterback this whole year. He has an insane completion percentage too, so he's efficient. He's moving the ball. He's not getting dead plays, which is huge. Like the whole thing is just like keeping your offense out on the field is so important, and getting it done with a high efficiency, quick passing game we've seen works a la Kansas City. It's just a killer for defenses. Drake May is, by the way, it's not just the quick passing game. His deep ball right now is like one of the best in the entire league. I think he has like a passer rating of 150 on deep balls through the last few weeks, which absurd. And again, we saw that again this week with the Saints, but all the OPIs, whatever. But he throws such a pretty deep ball too, and he's mobile, navigating the pocket. Drake May really does look so good. And it's crazy to say after last year, but he really ended up might being the best quarterback out of that draft class, which is unfortunate for me as I am a really, really big Jaden guy. I've always been a Jaden guy. And I have a friend who is just the biggest Drake May lover. So we've been in competition last year. It felt like I was going to come out on top on that one, but he might have just sneaked past me there. Anyway, we got to a side tangent. We are moving on to the next team, the Broncos. The Broncos, dirty, ugly win against the Jets, 13-11. I'm not going to factor that into it too much. My whole thing is that they're 4-2, great defense, a good play caller, and a very solid quarterback. And now they're adding the man, the myth, the legend, probably my favorite player of all time, Dre Greenlaw, onto their defense, which is going to help so much. having not only that type of guy out there for leadership, as just one of those guys who can put a statement on a game by absolutely laying someone out, the effort Dre Greenlaw gives, the ability he's going to give for them to stop the run. Whew, that if you didn't think that Broncos defense was good, now wait. I think they just said that Greenlaw's coming back off IR. Whew, that Broncos defense is going to be flying. It's going to be so much fun. The Seahawks I have next in that tier. Seattle, like Sam Darnold's just really good right now. He is clicking on every single cylinder, which I hate to say because I got a few years of Geno where I could just like act. People could act like he was good, and in reality, I knew in my heart of hearts he was trash. But now I have to deal with Sam Darnold, who's playing just great football. And JSN right now is looking like one of the best receivers in the league. I think he has close to 700 yards or something absurd like that. He and Darnold connected on what was just like a beautiful touchdown pass in that Jags game that really did deflate the Jags for the rest of the game. And their defense too. Oh, their defense under Mike McDonald is so good. A team that is built from the trenches on the defensive line when it comes to Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy starting to break out. And on their edges, they have Uchenna Nwosu, DeMarcus Lawrence. It's so much talent on that side. Sorry. Coming off a little bit of a cold. It's that Seattle team is scary as all hell. And I think they're going to keep winning games. And as a Niners fan, if I had to pick one team in the division I am truly concerned about, it's them. Continuing, and the last team in this tier, we have the Los Angeles Rams. Rams 4-2. We saw them beat up a poor Ravens team 17-3. And no, it wasn't even beat up. It was like they'd punch them and then they'd like give them a sec to get back up, and then they'd punch them again, and then they give them a few minutes to get back up. Twiddle their thumbs for a bit just to punch them again. I don't know why they killed them so slow, but they did. Just this ranking is like purely just based off of Matthew Stafford's has been awesome this year. Puka, who of course got injured, but he'll be back in a few weeks, has been great. He is such a perfect pairing with Devontae Adams too, by the way. That was such a nice move they made, swapping out Cooper Kupp for Devontae Adams. It just clicks a lot better. And then, of course, when we talk about the Rams, that pass rush, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Byron Young, that's always been just such, like their defensive line and their front seven not even front seven, sorry, front four, make up for the fact that their back seven really do suck. I'm not the biggest fan of their linebackers. Nate Landman showed some promise, but he's not great. And their corners, like Akello Witherspoon was their number one corner, and he's out. So it's just a collection of just nothing at the corner spot. But their whole defense that front four is so good that you really don't notice it that often. So it's also why the Niners are able to move on them so much, is because they just kept checking it down to the outside, and then forcing those corners and linebackers to make plays, which they couldn't. I think this ranking might be a little bit too generous towards the Rams, but that's why I think they just had to be in this tier of like things are overall just general good vibes for them. And last tier, I have the genuinely just good teams tier. These are teams that I think are locks to make the playoffs at this point. So much talent on both sides of the ball, and they're looking really good. I have the Packers as a team in this tier. This is more of like just future projection, call it a gut shot, because they had this weird ass game against the Bengals this week, and then they're coming off a bye and then a tie, which rhymes. You gotta love when it rhymes. But we know that their offense has potential to score a ton of points. Whenever Jordan Love is clicking, this whole team just looks so unstoppable. And of course, their defense, with the add of Micah Parsons, has been great this year. Again, outside of the weird Cowboys 40-point game, that'll be a game we look back at and just be like, what the hell happened? 40-40 tie. But this is more of like a future gut shot than anything. If you want to call it a little bias towards the Packers, I think that's perfectly fair. They could be in that tier of like something interesting is happening here, but it didn't really fit with the tier name because they've like just the last 3 weeks kind of just been stagnant. But I think the Packers have just so much talent that I have to put them here. And it's just the big question. I feel like the whole year, it's just we're going to be like, what's Jordan Love going to do? What's Jordan Love going to do? Because if he's just solid out there and everything else can just carry it over, Packers are going to be a dangerous team that no one wants to play. Next, I have Satan himself, the Kansas City Chiefs. Uh, I think people putting them as like the best team in the league is a tad of an overreaction. I feel like, they have played one clean game in the last 6 weeks or in the entire year. The thing is, and the reason why everyone's overreacting, and probably why I am by having them at like the third spot here, is that game was so good. um, Beating up on the Lions the way they did to the point where the Lions are like throwing punches at the end of the game, like it was impressive. That quick passing game is just better than ever because now you have all these speedy guys who can just take these little Mahomes checkdowns for like 20 yards. Like the amount of times that Hollywood Brown was getting open, and like they didn't really use Tyquan Thornton in this game, but his ability to just like go deep and stretch the defense is huge. Same for Xavier Worthy, and now they're adding Rashee Rice to this team. I hate to say it, they're pretty good. They're going to be pretty good, and their defense, which I think has been the biggest concern for the Chiefs in the last few weeks, especially with how that Jacksonville game ended. For them to go out there and just fully shut out the Lions was impressive. I guess not shut out, but if you hold the Lions to 17 points, I'm going to call it a shutout. For them to just go out there and just blanket the Lions was so. I just didn't expect it happening at all. I thought that we were heading for a giant shootout game, and I couldn't have been more wrong as far as that side of the ball. Like they could stop the run decently well. Like they were bending but not breaking the entire time. Classic Chiefs. I don't know. Watching the game was terrifying as someone who hates the Chiefs because it really did feel like we were seeing the Chiefs from like 2 years ago or last year, except even better. Like we were seeing the playoff form of them and zero penalties in a game. Like when I was watching the game, I didn't see any super obvious penalties that made me think, oh, well, the refs are just rigging it. Like, no, they just played like that good and clean of a game. Huge credit to them. I think it'll be interesting to see them next week against the Raiders with Rashee Rice back and see, like, now that you have all of your pieces back and you're playing a bummy team, can you put up like over 40 points and get like a real scare in the entire league? That'll be interesting to see. Last two teams, we have the 2-5-1 teams here. I don't necessarily care about where you would place them, but both of these teams have been awesome through this year and have surpassed so many expectations. Let's start with, of course, the real shocker of this entire year, Indianapolis Colts. The Colts, with Daniel Jones, have been so good this year. They are, I feel like there's a few stats every year I keep an eye on as to like what makes a difference between like a good team and like a great team. And the great teams are always insanely good in the red zone. And the Colts, the last two games have been 10-10 in the red zone, only putting in touchdowns. And it is so hard in the NFL to score in the red zone. It is the difference, what feels like in so many important games, is can you score in the red zone? And the Colts were able to go 10 for 10. And it's because Daniel Jones leads such an efficient passing game. And Jonathan Taylor, it has opened up Jonathan Taylor to be such a good running back. And and really look like the best running back in the league after the last few years. All right, even though it's been a few years since we've been able to say that about him. And their defense is playing well enough. They were able to get a few crucial stops against the Cardinals. Of course, last week they were able to get a fourth down stop to win the game. And I don't know, it's just, for me and the Colts, it's just about that offense is so good. Tyler Warren's been awesome. Michael Pittman's been kind of inconsistent. I'm not going to lie, I have him on my fantasy team. It's a little bit of a rough experience. But they have so much receiving talent. This is a team that probably should be 6-0 if Adonai Mitchell doesn't chuck the ball and fumble it in that Rams game like an idiot, which has now got him like DNPs and benched, which it's a whole thing because he's a really talented player. It sucks for him that happened, but also, why did you do that, dude? I mean, for the Colts, I feel like there's just not that much to say. It's like Indiana Jones. Daniel Jones has just been so much fun to watch, and this whole Colts team it's looking scary. I think it's. I said a few weeks ago, I called it as legit. Like once I saw them beat, can't remember who it was 2 weeks ago. But once I saw them go to like 4-1, I'm like, okay, I can call it. They're legit. This isn't just a fluke thing. And I don't get the 14-3 Vikings vibes from them because it felt like the whole time, like we were waiting for Sam Darnold to like make a mistake, and then it came at week 18 to end the year, and that's what it's like. Okay, yeah, this is what I expected. I really don't get that vibe from this Colts team just because of how good their ground game is, how good and how good Daniel Jones has played, and just it doesn't seem like out of realm. It doesn't seem crazy that he's doing this. He's not making like just ungodly plays or anything. He's just playing good football. So, Colts, I think they're also the 1 seed in the AFC right now, which is crazy. And they are now up, I think, a full game for that division. So something big to keep an eye on. The last team, the best team in the league right now, in my opinion, led by, in my opinion, the MVP of the league in Baker Mayfield, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Here's the thing: I have no video proof of this, so you can believe me or not believe me. I don't really care. My preseason pick was the Bucks to go to the Super Bowl in the NFC. I think if I remember correctly, I had Bucks Ravens or Bucks Bills. And if I really did have Bucks Ravens, I think I nailed that first part, and I really, really was off on the second part. But man, the Bucks, even through so many injuries, receiver one out, receiver two out, Emeka Egbuka now out. Their offensive line just destroyed. Every part of this Bucks team is battered, but they're still winning games. They're still fighting, and they've got their biggest like margin of victory against my Niners. They won 19-30. They were able to get huge turnovers on Mac Jones. Todd Bowles is in his bag. He is called, especially in that game. That was like a signature Todd Bowles game. So many like weird and creative blitzes to fully stuff us in that game. He, of course, forced the final turnover, which was like you watch the play live. It was so weird because like I'm screaming, get the ball in the middle of the field. It's wide open. But clearly, that pass rush and that whatever play and that play called threw off Mac a bit because he threw it to the one guy who was covered there. So all I could do is just give the Bucks credit. I'm like, they fully threw off Mac. And the fact that this team is so resilient, they know how to win these close games every time they find a way. They find a way to make it so that it's Baker's hands with the ball. Or Baker, it's the ball. It's the ball in Baker's hands to go win the game, and he seems to deliver every time. He is playing unbelievable football. He's getting all the gunslinger, fun Baker stuff without making the dumb mistakes that I feel like had plagued him the last few years. That was like you're playing awesome, but these things drag you down. He's not doing that this year, and if Baker keeps it up, he has to be the MVP. He is just playing so good. That 3rd and 14 run was nothing but dog and guts. It was crazy for him to even try that. I feel like most quarterbacks would have slid down after getting 5 yards, but he just kept running and kept running through defenders. And he had a beautiful touchdown pass too in the back of the end zone. I think to like Tez Johnson. Him and that Bucks team are so scary, and they're so good. And of course, that defense has Vita Vea, one of my favorite players in the entire league. Just a big guy who just destroys the run every time. Man, Bucks are fun, and they just got Winfield back, so even more turnovers are going to come from that Bucks defense. That's why I had them as the best team, and in part of that genuinely good 4-team range. I think the biggest takeaway when doing these rankings, which we've been talking about these teams now for an hour, which is crazy, it is so weird to not have a truly elite team in the NFL right now. It is, I think, I want to say the first time that we've seen it. Because last year we had Kansas City like winning every game, but it was like I don't know about that one. But then you could also see the Eagles are really starting to turn it on, and it was like okay, we at least know they're good. And then, or we also had Detroit. I forgot on like that 15-2 pace, or Detroit winning every game. We had like Minnesota winning every game. So we knew that like there were just genuinely elite teams out there, and I feel like for the first time in a really really long time. Like even those 4 teams I listed, the Packers, the Chiefs, the Colts, and the Bucks, they still have genuine like concerns. They have real issues. Of course, with the Packers, it's like you lost to the Browns. The Chiefs are 3-3 and out of the playoffs right now. The Colts have Daniel Jones at quarterback, and the Bucks are like one injury away from just being a full hospital team. But they're still like they're the best that we got. It's so weird. It makes it really fun, by the way, because I feel like there are now like 15 or more teams that feel like they have a shot at it this year. Everyone who's not on the bottom feeders tier, that 8, I feel like every single one of them is thinking in their head, we have a shot at this. And they probably feel like their conference is wide open. Because it is. Everything is fully open, and it's going to be so fun to see this play out in the next few weeks and see if we get a little more clarity. And if not, hey, even better. More parity, more chaos. So that was the power ranking side of it. I want to do a little bit on the trade deadline. We have that coming up in, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks, one of the two. Big, and we have, of course, we're starting to get that influx of rumors that always does come in. So we got some reports, I think, from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. we got some other stuff as far as which teams are selling, which teams are buying, which players could we see on the move. So, biggest sellers and the biggest buyers. Biggest sellers right now are, your pick of the bottom feeder teams. So the Titans are going to be selling veterans right now. They're going to be selling Arden Key is a big name for them. Especially for my Niners. I think that's like an easy, instant swap a 6th-round pick, get that done. I don't think they're on Jeffrey Simmons' watch. I think it'd be crazy to trade Jeffrey Simmons. He is a foundational defensive player. That is a guy you don't move unless you get offered multiple first-round picks. So I don't see them moving Jeffrey Simmons. Maybe Calvin Ridley could get moved. I think that'll also be fun to see. The Raiders. The Raiders with Geno. This guy. We have some rumors about Jacoby Myers potentially being on the move, which is something that was rumored at the beginning of the year, and I think we'll definitely have some ground to it. The Jets, litany of veterans, whichever ones you could choose from. Breece Hall, it's probably on the market, just because they have no need for him right now, even though he's a talented player. There's going to be demand for, I think the Steelers are also going to make a trade for, Allen Lazard. That's coming. Their defense side of the ball, I think Quincy Williams, who they have coming off IR soon, is very much a name to watch for them. That could get moved. Jermaine Johnson, their younger pass rusher. If a team comes and offers them a 3rd or a 2nd, I think they have to take that, regardless of how good of a player he is. The Saints with Demario Davis and the thing with Demario Davis, actually, I'm going to pause before I move on. Demario Davis could be the type of guy. He is 34, and he's been with the Saints his entire career. So I'm not too sure if he would want to move on. But if he does, he's playing at a high enough level to the point where there are a lot of teams that could take him. I think the Niners would take a look at him with the Fred Warner injury. I think the Rams would take a look at him, which is terrifying for me because he's a really, really good linebacker, and that fixes one of their bigger problems. I think every contender in the league right now could use Demario Davis because he's playing just that damn well. It's a thing for him of does he want to go for the ring push or does he want to just, he's lived in New Orleans his entire NFL career. Maybe he doesn't want to move, stuff like that. And then we have the Dolphins, who edge rushers, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, whoever is willing to pay a premium. I think those guys are 100% available. Those are 2 huge names at the deadline. If we're looking back at the end of the year, it's dang, what moves were needle movers? I think one of the Dolphins edge rushers at a slightly discounted rate will be one of those things where it's damn, that was a steal. Because Jalen Phillips is such a good player, it's just a matter of staying on the field. Same for Bradley Chubb. But if you can get them at the halfway point of the year and they're able to stay healthy for that push, they give you such an impact, such a boost. Both of those guys are awesome. And of course, the wild card of them all, the Bengals, because they are 2-4. They're probably not getting Burrow back for the whole regular season, and that probably means they're not making the playoffs. But which means easy, right? You trade your veteran players, you're not going to need them the whole year. But their owner sucks, so they have a arrogant owner who refuses to give up or make good deals, and so many other things. But so even though Trey Hendrickson is on the last year of his contract, they have shown no willingness to re-sign him. They actually just agreed on a 1-year deal so that he could say kumbaya and leave. But the reports are right now that they aren't looking to move him because they think Joe Flacco is going to get them to the playoffs. I don't know about that one, but Trey Hendrickson, again, is another one of the things where so many teams would at least throw something at the Bengals to try and get Trey Hendrickson. Biggest name for that one is 100% the Niners, especially if the Bengals are willing to eat salary, which is a thing they probably aren't willing to, so I don't know about that one. But we'll see as far as Hendrickson goes, because he is by far the best player available on the market. You add a top high-tier edge rusher in this league, tier 1 edge rusher. He is an absolute game wrecker. Multiple times per game, you can just instantly tell, oh yeah, that play's dead because Trey Hendrickson's out there. So, big thing to keep an eye on for them in Cincinnati. And now let's look at the biggest buyers. Or not even, I think we need to have a discussion about who's buying right now. Because I think we have seen in the last few years, the Eagles won based off of just good drafting for a consistent amount of time. The Chiefs were able to get revitalized after losing Tyreek Hill, thanks to just drafting well with those young guys. And then their defense starting to make a resurgence. Draft capital and young guys have gotten so insanely valuable in the last few years, especially like we're not in the 2021 Rams went all in type of stage right now. We're in the teams are have drafted and developed and are winning Super Bowls right now. So I don't know how that affects like contenders' ideology as far as giving up premium picks, as far as giving up like stuff more than a third rounder, and still trying to value the future and the present. So that's going to be something that I think, it seems so easy in like logic. Oh, for the Colts, just give a second round pick. Who cares? You're so good right now. You're 5-1. But that second rounder could be someone really good for your team in the future. And that could potentially be a piece to you winning later. So I know that's kind of like an more obvious thing, but it is something very much to think about when you're talking about your own team making trades. With all that being said, biggest buyers, I think the Chiefs are going to go for a running back. They kind of have to. Pacheco has been so bad for them, and so is Kareem Hunt. Like Kareem Hunt's great for getting 1 yard, but if you don't want 1 yard, he doesn't give you that much else. Rod Smith, their like 7th-round rookie, seems to give them the most burst, and all they can do is like throw checkdowns to him. So not too much out of that one. I think as far as like running backs they can look at right now, there's a very clear potential guy available in Chuba Hubbard because he's a good running back, very talented. But with Rico Dowdle playing the way he is, I think Carolina would 100% be willing to move on from him because again, they just don't need him. A more of like a dream scenario for them would be like Brees Hall. But I'm not sure if the Chiefs want to give up a premium of draft capital for a running back. So, because they already tried that once with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and it did not work out. Next huge buyer, I think we are looking at, like I mentioned, the Colts. The Colts could use some help on the defensive side of the ball. Laietu Latu as their edge rusher. He's great, but they could use one more guy. And that's where I think the Hendrickson thing would be interesting. And there's a few other good pass rushers out there. I mentioned Arden Key. I think that's another name to keep an eye on. Something like that for the Colts. Another big buyer, I think we're going to be looking at the Patriots. And I think the Patriots should go after one more receiver. Because while I do think Stephon Diggs is going to be great for them, and he has looked great in the last few weeks, I think they could use just a solid receiver too. A reunion with Jacoby Myers, perhaps, from the Raiders, what seems to make sense for both teams. Because I think Diggs and Myers honestly gives them a really, really solid 1-2 punch at that receiver spot. So something like that, I think that would be my theory. If not, one of the many Saints receivers are probably a good shout. Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. One of those guys would be great with Drake May. And let's see. I think the last team I would say is like definitely the last team who has the most interesting case right now as far as being a buyer is my Niners. Because you're 4-2. In theory, you 100% should be buying because you need to go make a run at this with your division. And, of course, all of the offensive guys being back. But with the Fred Warner injury and with the Nick Bosa injury, I don't know if you do it. This is like genuinely the hardest team to figure out when it comes to if they're buying or selling. In theory, you're like, okay, maybe we can get Hendrickson and that can not replace Bosa, but that can maybe give us like 80% of what Bosa gave. But with now Warner being out, I don't know. You're not going to go trade for Trey Anderson and DeMario Davis. It's just not the way this team works. So I don't know when it comes to the Niners. That is by far the most interesting team when it comes to buying or selling. I want to do a more expanded like buying or selling thing as we get closer to the trade deadline and know a little bit more. Because right now we just have a list of like 10 guys who could get traded, but that doesn't really mean a whole lot. So it has been over an hour. I think this is the longest recording we've had so far. It has been an absolute pleasure. And, it was fun talking about all those teams we haven't had a chance to talk about. Like, the Commanders are such a good team, but they just haven't popped up because, their games haven't been too interesting. But, getting to do, or not too interesting. They've had important games, but, like, them beating the Chargers 27-10 was huge. But, like, there's not too much for me to talk about there. When it comes to like the bad teams, especially, like I haven't had an opportunity to talk about the Titans or the Raiders. So all that's fun. It has been a great, great show. And thank you all for listening. And I hope you have a phenomenal day.